There's one day to go on what has been one of the most disrupted election campaigns in history, thanks to public holidays, school holidays and the Pope's death. Now, I've got to say it's been a boring campaign, and you can see that from the unusually high soft vote. Voters are disillusioned. This should have been a referendum on Anthony Albanese. The problem is, and this is clear by the number of undecided voters, people don't like Anthony Albanese, but they don't know who Peter Dutton is or what he stands for. And by now, they should. And there has been no big divide between the parties. And I will give you my thoughts on what this means for the coalition shortly. But all in all, Peter Dutton should be our next Prime Minister tomorrow. He represents the change this country so desperately needs to lift us out of Labor's man-made rut. Albo is the king of con, and another 3 years of him is a disaster. I want to cast our minds back to his 2022 victory speech. Have a look at this.
We have made history tonight. And tomorrow, together, we begin the work of building a better future. A better future for all Australians.
Well, we know that better future was a lie. Albo is the Pinocchio Prime Minister who has mismanaged the economy, made life harder for families, presided over skyrocketing bills and a housing crisis, brought in a record 1.1 million migrants, mismanaged national security and left us poorer as a result. He sold us a pup in 2022 and lied, as he has lied every day of this campaign. And even today in his election eve pitch, the porkies were rolling off the tongue.
We secured a mandate in 2022 to implement our agenda. That is what we have done, with difficult circumstances being thrown at us. You know, the biggest global inflation spike since the 1980s has meant that inflation hit double digits in some countries.
Yeah, look, lying has become his brand. Now, Labor was elected on a cost of living mandate. I don't need to tell you how that's worked out, you know. Housing affordability has never been worse. The median rent hit a record high of 32.9% at the end of December. And the Ponzi scheme economy is alive and well thanks to record migration, because had it not been for that, we would have been in a recession. And as a result, inflation stayed higher for longer and our power bills went up despite this mandate.
Reducing power prices by $275 a year. We will put in place mechanisms that provide cost of living relief.
Under Labor, you'll have a government which cares about cost of living and has plans to deal with it.
I'll build people's living standards up. A better future with real plans to address the cost of living.
Secondly, Albo tried to spin this lie today.
And in the next 3 years, what we will do is to continue to see economic growth, continue to see the benefits that come from the transition to a clean energy economy.
Well, that is just wrong. The transition to clean energy, this renewables pipe dream fantasy, is sending us broke and backwards. The experiment has jacked up prices by about $1,000, left us in limbo during heat waves and cold snaps, and in the lurch for the future. Not to mention the additional costs of putting up transmission lines, building wind turbines and solar panels. And then there was this from the Prime Minister today.
Urgent care clinics will be entrenched if we're elected. They'll go under the coalition. They will go.
Again, it's just not true. The coalition has pledged $9 billion for Medicare, more than Labor's pledge. And finally, this lie.
That is another of the distinctions in this campaign. You know, hope versus fear, optimism versus talking Australia down. My opponent is fearful of the present and petrified of the future.
Yeah, what optimism is there under Labor? Because the party's number one tactic this election, if not obsessing over Peter Dutton, has been its scare campaigns. And all coming from this man who wants us to trust him.
Photos with everyone, okay?
I stepped back one step. I didn't fall off the stage. Just one leg went down, but I was sweet.
Now, if the polls are correct, Anthony Albanese is on track to form minority government with a majority within reach. In today's Australian Financial Review Freshwater Strategy poll, Labor is leading the coalition 51.5% to 48.5% two-party preferred. The coalition's primary vote has fallen 2 points to 37%, while Labor's rose 1 point to 33%. But the coalition is confident it can pick up 10 seats from Labor, but coalition strategists admit it will take a miracle to win. And Peter Dutton himself has all but admitted this.
We should have called out Labor's lies earlier on. That's something I've commented on before. But again, I think Australians, as time has gone on through this campaign, and they've seen the negative ads and they'll see the posters, etc., as they go to the polling booths, people are smarter than that.
Now, as I said before, people don't like Anthony Albanese, but they don't know who Peter Dutton is or what he stands for. There has been real no contest of ideas. Policy has been more like thought bubbles and policy on the run, made up day by day. It's also been a very unique campaign in that it's been won and lost on social media, as both parties try and appeal to a younger audience through sound bites like this.
Authorised P. Erickson, ALP Canberra.
Well, what can you say? I mean, it is cringed. And again, it is more lies. And the Liberals are also putting out videos to make Dutton appeal to the younger vote.
Authorised by Ahurst Liberal Canberra.
Hey, he got there in the end. But these videos are racking up hundreds of thousands of views because, let's be honest, the campaign, as I said, has been boring. And this has worked against the coalition. Now, Peter Dutton is a strong leader, a good man. You can see that he genuinely loves this country and wants to see it thrive. He is so much better than the weak, inept Albo. But I think there have been some mistakes in the coalition's campaign that can't be ignored and have led to there being no difference in the way policies have been perceived. And this was the moment, I think, when something really changed.
Do you trust him, was the question?
Well, we trust the United States, and I don't know the President. I've not met him. The Prime Minister obviously has been able to.
So you're not willing to say you trust Donald Trump?
I don't know Donald Trump is my point.
Now, look, that answer was wishy-washy because the answer should have been yes. You trust the leader of the free world as our number one ally. But the strategy from the opposition changed at that point. It went weaker and almost fearful, and it really spiralled from there.
What is your definition of a woman?
Well, that's a matter, obviously, that's been before the British courts. I haven't seen the detail of the case, and it's not something that I think is front of minds at this election, I think.
Why avoid a biological reality? And then this yesterday.
For most Australians, nuclear power starting in 2035 to 37 is probably just too far away to contemplate. It's not been a huge issue at this election, either for or against.
Nuclear was a key point of difference for the coalition from the very beginning because it's a proven energy resource in powerhouses like the US and the UK. Why run from the reality of what is a great resource? And I have to ask, what happened to this Peter Dutton?
A woman is defined as an adult female, and that's the definition. That Australia must embrace zero-emission, next-generation nuclear technologies as part of our energy mix. We should stand behind one flag united. So would we reinstate a requirement for councils to hold citizenship ceremonies on Australia Day? You bet. It'll be done in the first 100 days.
Yeah, and that was when the coalition was ahead of Labor in the polls, when the polls pointed to a coalition victory. And it's been a real shame to see a backdown of sorts. What does the coalition stand for? And if you combine these missed opportunities with a lefty media pack, it's not helped Dutton at all.
Calling some media hate media, you've called some journalists activists. What questions have you taken issue with?
But isn't blaming the media just a convenient excuse at this point of the campaign?
A lot of your campaign has been at petrol stations, you've been in trucks, when you speak about female-dominated industries like education, you talk about the woke agenda. What are you offering modern working women?
They're just pathetic questions. And I still think it will be won seat by seat. The Liberals could indeed pick up a dozen or so seats. And surely voters will not overwhelmingly reward Albo after the mess he has left this country in. And Labor's primary vote has barely budged in recent months, which is actually a blight on the party. And if it does indeed fall into minority, well, that is a failure for Labor and Anthony Albanese. But overall, we cannot afford another 3 years of this.
My word is my bond. My word is my bond. My word is my bond.
More like a mess and $1 trillion in debt. Thanks for nothing, Albo.